Excellences, Monsieur le Président du Conseil, Excellences, Madame Francia Elena Marquez.
Your Excellency, Vice President of the Republic of Colombia, Honorable Chair of the National Assembly, Chair of the Senate, ladies and gentlemen representing the institutions of the Republic, honorable ministers, honorable President of the ECOWAS Commission, honorable MPs, ladies and gentlemen from neighboring countries, Africa and the Caribbean, representative of the President of the African Commission, Governor of the Autonomous District of Greater Lomé, ladies and gentlemen from the consular and diplomatic representatives accredited to the Republic of the Togolese Republic, venerated traditional chiefs, representatives of the African diaspora, and persons of Afro-descendants, representatives of African civil society and Pan-African society, intellectual representative of the intellectual, scientific, cultural communities, members of commissions, ladies and gentlemen representing private sector, ladies and gentlemen representing identifiable groups, honorable ladies and gentlemen representing media, ladies and gentlemen, in February 2020, our country, Togo, under the leadership and initiative of His Excellency Foy Sodinam Nyasingbe, President of the Council, pleaded to other members of the African Union in Addis Ababa on the need to establish a decade of African roots and a decade for Africans and Afro-descendants. The heads of state adopted the decade 2021-2031 as the African route for the Africans and African diaspora, as part of which this Pan-African Congress is being held. Since 2023, Togo has undertaken the works for the organization of the 9th Pan-African Congress. The combined effort of the President present here, heads of states of the African Union, Caribbean, and the African Union Commission made it possible today to hold this Congress. A solemn opportunity, on this solemn opportunity for the opening of the 9th Pan-African Congress, allow me, Honorable His Excellency, President of the Council, to recognize and to commend you that our country has been selected as the epicenter of African idealism. We commend you. Through this decision, you are reiterating our commitment of the land of our ancestors, of the Africa, through the role that Togo played in the history of the Organization of the African Unity.
I would like, on behalf of His Excellency Foy Sodinam Nyasingbe, President of the Council of Togolese Republic, the government and the Togolese people, to extend a warm welcome to you in Lomé. The real name of the city of Lomé is capital of peace, mediation, dialogue, and tolerance. Whether you come from Africa, the Americas, the Caribbean, the diaspora, or elsewhere, I would like to acknowledge and welcome your presence here in Lomé and your valuable participation in this important event, which aims to promote unity and solidarity between African peoples and those of the diaspora. Mesdames et Messieurs, 125 ans après la première conférence.
Ladies and gentlemen, 125 years and 6 years after the Pan-African Congress of Paris, Lomé, on the African continent has brought together from today to the 12th December 2025, the African community from the world over around the African cause. After the 1974 Uganda, in 1994 South Africa and Ghana, respectively in 2014 and 2015. Our country, Togo, is proud for your strong mobilization, which reflects the renewal of the African commitment that the larger African community, with our challenges for African Renaissance. And through this challenge, George Patmore, that we just listened to, said that the idea of Pan-Africanism comes out first through as a manifestation of brotherly fraternal solidarity among Africans and Afro-descendants. This Congress in Lomé recalls this truth.
All those who have traveled thousands of miles to come here in Lomé, in response to the call of the Pan-Africanism ideal, which in renewing itself has become a true mobilizing force. Our thanks go to the African states, the African Union Commission, CARICOM Commission, all Africans and friends of Africa present here, the African diaspora, and people of African descent, African and Pan-African society, and representatives of all target groups here. We would also like to thank the members of the various commissions and panels whose expertise will enrich and inform the work of the Congress. Our thanks go to the event partners, the members of the organizing committee, and all the resource persons who have worked tirelessly from the beginning until this day to ensure the effective holding of the Pan-African Congress here in Lomé. Nous voulons vous remercier.
We'd like to thank members of the various committees that worked tirelessly from the beginning until the opening of this Congress.
As you know, the phase that we are beginning to conclude today began when the Conference of Heads of State and Government at its 34th Ordinary Session held on 6 and 7 February 2021 in Addis Ababa declared at the initiative of the Togolese government the decade 2021-2031, decade of African roots and African diaspora, and requested that among other activities of Pan-African Congress be organized in Lomé to rekindle the burning flame of Pan-Africanism, which is once again igniting our continent and its diaspora. To this end, we have both virtual and in-person organized in turn 6 regional pre-congress, in particular in South Africa in December 2023, in Mali in March 2024, by Morocco in April 2024, the Congo in May 2024, by Tanzania in July 2024, and finally in Bahia in Brazil in August 24. During these various meetings, high expectations were expressed and urgent yet realistic declarations and recommendations were formulated to enable our continent's diaspora to finally break free from this vicious cycle of subjugation and historical injustice. This pre-Congress undoubtedly constitutes landmark encounters between Africans and continent and between those on the continent and people of African descent. This warm encounter fostered constructive exchange, reconciliation, and a sense and fraternity that sheds considerable light on the outline of a new architecture of collaboration and cooperation that both sides of the Atlantic Ocean can promote at the level of states and their respective people. I remain convinced that this 9th Pan-African Congress will confirm the promising beginning of the Congresses and allow us to realize the dream of our illustrious predecessor of Pan-Africanism as Kwame Nkrumah, Cheikh Anta Diop, Modibo Keïta, Thomas Sankara, etc., etc. Mesdames et Messieurs, chers participants,
ladies and gentlemen, dear participants, the history of Pan-Africanism is in stages, and the Togolese stage would remain in the history as being one of the uniting contributions. Pan-Africanism is a movement which has developed extensively, and at this current stage has double characteristics based on its vitality, its reality, its ambitions, and fundamental cause, which is always the freedom for all, universal equality for all, justice and liberation, end of racism in all states. But among us, let us not conflate nationalism and Pan-Africanism. There is Pan-Africanism and there is nationalism. Nationalism is completely different from Pan-Africanism because it is it's for nations. Pan-Africanism is born from Afro-descendants and not Africans, and this is why we want to salute the presence of all Afro-descendants here from Brazil, Colombia, and so on and so forth. Fighting for 125 for freedom, Pan-Africanism has been fighting for the liberty of humanity. 125 of fighting for human dignity. Pan-Africanism has been fighting for human dignity, fighting 125 years for justice. Pan-Africanism has been fighting for the world of future. 125 years fighting for preparation for Pan-Africanism is fighting for the healing of the wounds of humanity and unity. And Joseph Kizerbo said each generation has its own pyramids to build. It is our turn today to build our pyramid, our generation, so future generation can recall our contribution. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, to conclude, let me remind all that you are warmly welcome to the Lome, the crossroads of Pan-Africanism and renewal of African Pan-Africanism, and how I cannot conclude this meeting by telling those of you who are in Togo for the first time that Togo is doing well and doing very well.